So this is the bump head that comes with my Milwaukee string trimmer. This is the newer brushless style, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to restring this head. Now, the first way, of course, is going to be the easiest way, but you are going to want to stay and watch the second way because, like you see here, there's no string coming out of this, but on this side, there is some string coming out of it. Well, I'm not sure why. I really like this trimmer, but I'm not sure what it is with this head, but this scenario happens a lot. But the only way to fix that is to actually take the cap off and get to the spool itself and re-spool it that way. There is this weird thing with the automatic spooling, which is the first way I'm going to show you, but I believe what that's doing is it's winding the string too tight on the head, because usually when I see this happen, I open it up and that twine is on there pretty tight. And I usually have to get in there, sometimes even with pliers, to get it off. That should never happen. So that's one of the reasons you'll get this kind of breakage, is it's on there too tight, and no matter how many times you hit this bump head, this eventually just breaks off. One side or both, you know, whatever. But if you only got one string, well, it doesn't have, you know, all the cutting power that you would want it to have. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So I'm actually going to take the string out of this to show you this example, and then I'll get right into stringing it. All right, so the very first step you want to do, no matter what you're doing, if you're working on your trimmer, you want to take the battery out. You do not need any accidents where the trimmer gets engaged or turns on and you've got the battery in it. So take your battery out before you do any of this stuff on your trimmer. So to get started on the first way, which is the easiest way to string this head, you're going to want 10 to 15 feet of line cut. Then if you notice on this head here, there are these arrows, and that's showing you which way to wind it. Now, if you look here on the side, there is a little notch here, and then this says load. So now on mine, this is used a little bit. These little lines here are normally red, but I think this red paint comes off pretty quick. So both sides are the same: notch, hole, load. And what you want to do is you want to get these notches that are in this cap here lined up with these, and you turn it in the direction that it says with the wind. So we're going to go here, and we're going to just push down on the head to get those lined up. Now the hole and the red line and everything here is all lined up. Then you just get the line and push it through the hole. Now, if your line has some curve to it or is twisted up or something, you may not get it straight through. You want to try to get it straight through. So I'm going to turn it here, and you can see it's already coming through this side. Then you want to get both sides of your line the same length. To do that, I just put the 2 ends together, grab it with my hand, and then I just pull it up, and I just keep pulling until I get both lines pretty much even. So then you've got your line ran through, both sides are about equal. So now you just hold one hand on the bottom, and then you take your hand and twist the cap in the direction that it says to twist it. And as you do that, it is pulling in this line and spooling it on the spool inside. And you just basically keep going until you have, I don't know, 12 inches of line, maybe 6 inches of line sticking out. I'd probably go with more like 6 inches, because if it's too long, the line will get cut off by this little blade here, and that's there on purpose so that way you're not putting too much load on the motor. Basically, this is the length of the line that it's supposed to be. So if you have excess line hanging out, just wind it in a little bit more. And then when I start, I just pull both sides out. They may not be perfect, but pull both sides out, and now you're ready to go. So that is the easiest way to spool the line. Now, again, you're going to want to watch this next step, because I don't know what it is with this bump head, but with this bump head, it tends to break these off a lot. And I take it apart and I find out that it's just tangled or twisted on way too tight. If you don't want to deal with it getting tangled up, or if you run into the situation I'm talking about where things get broken off, you can take this cap off and spool it the traditional way. Now to do that, there are these push tabs. So you can see here in the video, there's a little push tab, and there's one on each side. You can see it right here. So those push tabs are what's holding this cap on. So if you put your fingers and push those buttons in, this cap is going to pop off, and your spool is going to be right there inside. Now we're going to set this head aside for a second, and we're going to look at the spool. So this all got reeled in by doing the way we did in the first step. And here's where you can see it went through. So now we can take this side off. And this wasn't spooled too tight when it did this one. It doesn't do that to me every time, but it does it sometimes. So I'm taking this line off, and we're going to re-spool it. So if you try to do the first way of putting the line in and you keep trying to push the line in and it just won't go in, well, you may have this problem where they broke off, you don't see any line, but there is still line on the head, so you're not going to be able to push it through the hole because there's already line in there. So you're going to have to do this to check the line and everything anyway. And I'm kind of already getting to the point where I do this one this way to start with. I don't do it the easy way because, like I said, it tangles up and it frustrates me. So to spool it this way, you basically do the same thing as we were doing before. You look for this hole here that's in the spool, and the key to spooling this is to knowing which way to spool it. So we're going to put this line through, and then we're going to get it, you know, halfway stretched through. And when it's time to spool this line by hand, you're going to want to spool this based upon the direction that the spool head area is open. So like you see here, you can't spool it this way because it's not open that way. It's open this way, right? So you're going to want to spin it this way on the bottom so that way it can go on the line. I actually spool the top spool first because that kind of gets some of the line out of the way. So again, if you look at this, you can't spool it this direction. You can only spool it this direction. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just start spooling this line up by wrapping it around like this. And if you take it out of a container that's been wrapped, or if you take it off the head, either way, you're going to get this springy type of line. It's just something we have to deal with, sadly, with spools. But you just spin this all the way up like this and somewhat keep it held. Then I come on this side, and again I spool it based upon the way this little notch is, which would go this way, and I just start to spool it. I don't actually try to move the tabs out of the way. I go underneath. And it's not as easy as some trimmers would be to spool this manually, but it is what it is. So if the first step works great for you, or the first way to spool this, which it usually does, but not always, then great, do it that way. But if you have trouble, this is the way you can get in there and get it all cleaned out. So now that this is spooled like this, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the trimmer head. So to do that, you're going to want to take the line, keep it somewhat spooled on, but you're going to want to push it through the holes. As you can see here, I'm pushing it through the hole. And then you're going to want to do the same thing with the top one. You're going to want to come in here, you're going to want to take some line out and push it through the hole like here. Then you line it up with these tabs right here, and you push it all the way in. Now I'm going to pull these lines a little bit just to make sure they're not getting tangled up. And then I'm going to push down real hard and snap them in right here, because these tabs need to be snapped in all the way to do it. And then I just pull the line to make sure it's okay, and that's it. Now you'll go bump this, get it to have a little bit more line come out of here, and you're all set and done. Now again, the first way is way easier than doing it the second way, especially with this bump head, but you know, you're gonna probably run into the scenario where these break off and you need to go in there and manually do it, or at least manually take it out so you can re-spool it. So it's good to know the second step. I gotta be honest with you, I really like this Milwaukee trimmer. I do not like their bump head. So most likely if I end up keeping this trimmer, which I probably will, but if I do, probably replacing this bump head with some more universal type of bump head, because this bump head gives me a lot of headache, and I've been doing bump heads for years. So if this is giving me headache, if you're a novice, it's going to be a nightmare for you. So think about it. Like I said, I really like this Milwaukee trimmer, but this bump head is just not cool. I really hope this video was helpful for someone. Thank you very much for watching. Y'all take care.